All right, folks, this is the exciting module. This is where we are finally going to embed SEL into our specific programs, our own specific programs. So everyone's teaching something different. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the 5 competencies in this video, and I'm going to give a lot of different types of examples of ways that SEL might already be similar or be easy to embed or easy to become part of what you are already doing, with maybe just a little adjustment in mindset or adjustment in approach. After that, you are going to go through and based on maybe some of the chapters in our portraits book that we use as one of our textbooks, or some other resources that you've looked at either in the last module or in this module, you're going to actually put together a plan for how you will embed SEL in either a lesson, a unit, some type of a project that you're going to put together. I will explain that in a separate video. So let's dive in to specific ways that music and that SEL can be embedded right into a music education program. I like to start with this question. Isn't music automatically SEL? Well, what we're going to find as we go through this introductory video and the activities in this module, there are a lot of things about music that make it inherently rich, a really good place for embedding SEL and for working on building SEL skills. But just because music is a ripe place for that doesn't mean that it's automatically going to happen. So we need to be intentional about our implementation, our embedding of SEL into our programs so that we are able to be successful. I love this quote from Omar Thomas from the Teaching Social Emotional Learning Through Music, episode number 2. Omar said, "Have you ever heard a piece and didn't like it, and then heard it again later and liked it? The music didn't change. You did." And I think that's a good thing to think about, not just about music, but about life in general. We can probably all think back to things, maybe a perspective we had or a belief we had, and we were held strong on that belief, and then we learned a little bit more, and we changed, and then our perspective changed on that. And so this can be true for music, it can be true for life. Let's look at some things that make music fertile ground for SEL. First of all, music is both social and emotional by nature. We make music with other people. Even if you're playing a piece that is a solo work, you are interacting with the composer as you are the one who's bringing that music to life. So there's a social element to all of music, and then music is emotional. We're going to talk more about that in this module. But there are things that there just are no words for, right? And music can move us in so many ways, whether it's actually the music itself or whether it's the combination of the social experience and the music together. I think about my last concert at Ohio State, which was also the last concert for our graduate conducting associate. We performed Elsa's Procession to the Cathedral. And when I listen to that recording now, I can still feel that emotion of that moment. Many of us in tears as we realized that this was the last time we were all going to make music together. The last time, Erica was going to be on the podium with us, and we had been together, some of us for as many as 3 years. If someone else listens to that recording, they're probably going to hear, some of that low brass, they were really overplaying now, weren't they, there at the end? But they weren't hearing people playing through the emotion. So music, social, and it's emotional just by its very nature. We can have an emotional response to any music, even music that we don't like. We don't always have vocabulary to describe, how we're feeling, and music can help us explore these emotions. Unfortunately, in this world, we've had terrible things that have happened, shootings and death and heinous things that have happened, and sometimes natural disasters, which also are bad, but not caused necessarily by humans. But all these things that have happened, and we have music sometimes that's written to help us process and explore the emotions that we feel. And when the vocabulary just can't do it, but music can help us. In episode 1 of the Teaching Social Emotional Learning Through Music series, Richard Saucedo said, "For the performance of music to be successful, we have to have empathy because our success depends on each person's success. That's not true in other classes. right? So I can go back to my high school years and I can go back to math class. I could sit there and get bad grades on my math. And my classmates, they could go ahead and get A's. And my bad grades didn't hurt their good grades. If we would go to music, though, if somebody's playing, honking away on the oboe and they're a half step flat, and they're really loud, that is going to impact the whole thing. So, or if we say we don't have any trumpets, okay, that's going to impact what we can do, right? So our success depends on everyone's success. We need everyone to play well. We need everyone to be in a good place for us to all be able to be as successful as possible. And that's just not something that happens in most, or all, maybe other classes. Music helps is a fertile ground for SEL because it helps us with self-awareness, right? I'm a flute player. I am never going to be the best flute player in the world. And I knew that way early on, right? There's always going to be people who play better than me. There are always going to be people who play worse than me, right? I'm going to be somewhere in the middle there. And I can work hard and I can compete with my own self to continually be a better musician. But part of that self-awareness is understanding where you fit in terms of the musical world. I love this aspect of SEL in music, and that is thinking about how relationship skills come into play. So how does your part relate to others? Should you be standing out or supporting? So in addition to playing flute, I also play piccolo, and I love playing piccolo. I am well aware that I could really damage everyone's performance if I just blare and blast on the piccolo. So I have to really think all the time about my part and how it relates to everyone else and really listen. And we teach that to our students, right? Forte, what does forte mean? Well, it's contextual, right? It's going to be forte compared to what everyone else is doing in that ensemble so that we're appropriately balanced. That's the same. It transfers really, really well to having a conversation, right? So when you're having a conversation with another person, how does what you're contributing to that conversation relate to what they're contributing? Are you just talking about yourself the whole time? Are you going back and forth? Are you interested in them? Are you listening to them? Just are you listening to the other instruments or other voices in the ensemble that you're playing with? There's so many things going on in the world that we would not know about without music. So I think about that all the time, whether it's historical events or science or places, all of those different things where when we are learning a piece of music, we're learning about that culture, we're learning about that place or that situation or whatever it is that we might not otherwise just explore. It might not really be something that's included in our history classes or other classes that we take, but because we're studying a piece of music that explores that, then we do encounter that. And there are, of course, lots of other reasons. So in this is a little longer of an introductory video because I want to go through some examples of how to approach your music teaching through an SEL lens. For the next few slides, what I'm going to show you, we're going to go through each of the 5 SEL core competencies, and I'm going to include Castle's definition on the slides just so that you can put yourself into Castle's mindset there. So self-awareness includes the abilities to understand one's own emotions, thoughts, and values and how they influence behavior across contexts. So some different examples of ways that might come in, to tie in with music education. Exploring emotions in a way that goes beyond words through music performance, which I talked about on the previous slide. With younger students in particular, singing songs that introduce students to vocabulary about emotions. So I have the picture there of all those different sort of emoji-looking eggs. But when we look at emojis, they're really helpful to us, right? Because it's not just happy, sad, or happy, mad. There are all these different categories of how we can feel. And so as we can use songs to help our students explore all of those different types of ways that they could feel. You can look at how the movement impacts the student's heart rate. So is there something about the movement that I'm doing with my music or playing my instrument? How is that actually physiologically impacting me as a human? You can ask your students what's on their playlist today And with that, maybe you're learning a little bit more about how they're feeling. Like, is it like, some dark kind of song today, or is it something really upbeat? And that can kind of help you get a little bit of a sense of where your students are. Understanding who they are as a musician, what their identity is as a musician, is a big part of self-awareness. That can be something that's so frustrating for music teachers. I know for me, I always hate it when a student drops out. When I was a band teacher, I hated it when students would drop out of band. And you have to realize though that how music is as part of my identity isn't going to be, it's not going to be the same for all other students. So, we want all our students to practice a lot, for example, but maybe music might not play that strong of a role in their identity. Maybe they're a gymnast or a dancer, or, they like coding or whatever it is that they do. So helping the students understand what role music plays in their life, and that they are musicians because they're making music, they're in choir, they're in band, they're in class, they're making music, they're creating music that makes them a musician. But what kind of musician? What is the role that music plays in their life? Recognizing prejudices and biases while learning about issues that are the basis for a piece is another thing that's really important. As we learn, as we go through time, and we mature as human beings, we're going to learn things, and we're going to learn times when what we thought was true is maybe not actually what we believe anymore. And so as we recognize, maybe as we learn about a new piece of music, we might look and say like, oh man, I see a way that I have not done what I don't want to be that way anymore. I want it to be this new way. And so that is going to help students explore their identity, their self-awareness as they look at themselves, as they consider what's happening in different, whatever music that you're using with your students. Self-awareness of, who plays each of the different instruments. We joke around about the type of students who play flute, or the type of students who are percussion or tuba, or, the sopranos or whatever. But understanding, who is playing different instruments. Sometimes we say, the flutes, they will be girls, play the flute, and percussions for the tuba, that's for the boys. But that's not true, right? And so we have to recognize and ensure that we're not putting that type of label on those instruments. And we want our students to recognize their strengths and their areas for improvement in their musical skills. So those are all examples for self-awareness. Moving on to self-management, Castle defines that as the abilities to manage one's emotions, thoughts, and behaviors effectively in different situations and to achieve goals and aspirations. So thinking about music education, being able to process emotion if we don't get what we want. So maybe we don't get the lead in the musical. Maybe we don't get to be it in the game, or we don't get the red scarf, or whatever it is, but to be able to process that in a healthy way. And that's a life skill, right? Using healthy strategies for managing performance anxiety. That helps us with self-management. What do we need? What do I need to do before I perform so that I can be my best self? What do I need to do during the performance if I feel a certain way? What are the things that work for me to be able to continue to perform at the level that I'm capable of? Knowing when to step away from an activity to collect themselves, that's not music specific, but that's another important thing. And especially when we look at elementary general music classrooms, sometimes, we're getting the kids kind of sort of riled up with the activity, and maybe somebody needs to understand, like, I'm getting a little too much. I'm getting a little too stimulated here. I need to sit down for a few minutes before I make a bad decision. Creating a manageable practice strategy for an upcoming audition is another important thing. So, we have this music. It's a big challenge. We can't play it yet, but how are we going to break that down? What steps are we going to take? And how can, being able to have the skills to do that, that's a huge part of self-management, totally transferable to other life skills. And then being able to, of course, resist the urge to play your instrument when you're not supposed to be doing that. Moving to social awareness, this includes the abilities to understand the perspectives of and empathize with others, including those from diverse backgrounds, cultures, and contexts. In music education, we talked about this a couple slides ago, but balancing your part with everyone else's. So having that social understanding, like, where is everyone else and where am I? How do I fit in there? Being able to give concrete, specific, meaningful, heartfelt feedback to another person. We do that in music with peer feedback to each other, or maybe from section leaders to the members of their section, things like that. Not gloating when you win first chair, you get the lead, or when you get that red scarf that you really wanted. Understanding how to gracefully achieve something without kind of shoving it in everyone else's face. Exploring global issues while studying a musical work or performing or playing a song based on the issue. There are a lot of times when the title of a piece might not tell us what it's really about, but we need to take time, and we take that time during while we're learning the piece of music to dive in, learn more about it, and learn about a global issue. Looking at the lyrics of a song and asking what the song really is about. I put a few examples there. Marvin Gaye's What's Going On, Miley Cyrus' The Climb, The Beatles, We Can Work It Out, Kansas, Carry On My Wayward Son, all of those types of songs. Sitting down with students, giving them the opportunity to look at the lyrics and say, what are we really singing about here? What's this song about? That can help students build their social awareness. It's good for students to understand not to hog the resources. And I like this. My last point: why the flutes don't always know everyone in the band. Flute players are in the front, right? So we have a special relationship kind of with the director a lot of times because we hear all of the things that they say under their breath. We get poked by the baton on a regular basis. When there's a little bit of time at the beginning of class, when everybody's getting set up, maybe the director's standing there and we're right there. And so maybe we have those conversations. But a lot of times when I talk to my friends who play low brass instruments or percussion or trumpet or whatever, they talk about all these people who were in the ensemble. And I'll say, well, I didn't know they were in there. Well, we're sitting there and it's kind of not polite to be like, looking around all the time. So making sure you give those chances for sections to interact with one another is important. That way everyone does get to know each other, who else is in the ensemble. Relationship skills are the abilities to establish and maintain healthy and supportive relationships and to effectively navigate settings with diverse individuals and groups. In music education, that's helping our students lead effectively. There are a lot of different ways that students lead in music, and we have to be careful that we're not just like being like, hey, you're the section leader, go lead the section. But that we're actually using resources, and there are a lot of fantastic music education leadership resources out there, but that we're actually helping them develop those skills so that they can do a good job at it. They're not trying to make it up as they go. Sharing the instrument everyone wants to play, who got that really big drum that's so much fun to play. Fostering a welcoming environment for everyone to participate in, like really doing that. Not just saying you do it, but that literally everyone is welcome in your program. Building up the community through support and encouragement within your ensemble and outside the ensemble. Asking for help when it's needed. Assisting others when possible. And a fun way to explore relationship skills in music with older students is to create a playlist or pick a song for someone else. So, as they get to know one another a little bit better, like, I think you'd really like this song, and really being thoughtful about that. Finally, responsible decision-making. This is the ability to make a caring and constructive choices about personal behavior and social interactions across diverse situations. So in music education, that could look like deciding how to approach practicing a new piece, making responsible decisions. If future self wants to make all state, present self is going to need to do certain things to make that happen. Being open-minded about singing a song or playing a piece that's in a different or unfamiliar musical style. Making good choices while others are performing or while they're in the spotlight, that we're, being respectful and making good decisions there. Adjusting dynamics on the spot to not cover up a soloist. As a musician, we're always listening. We're always making adjustments. We make, infinite numbers of adjustments and decisions all the time while we're playing. In one concert, be so many different decisions that you're making. And this is one of them, right? Ooh, the oboist they're really quiet today with their solo. And it's the concert. I can't wait for the teacher to tell me, I know I need to play a little more quietly. As music educators, or anyone who's making decisions, whether your students are deciding what they're going to wear for something or whatever, making those decisions in a way that honors socioeconomic diversity, making sure that the concert dress or what's expected for dress for any type of situation is not going to be difficult for students from different socioeconomic backgrounds. Scheduling events in your community to avoid holidays that might be celebrated by students in your community, even if it's only a few students in your community. So it's easy to look and say, like, okay, well, most people in my community celebrate these holidays. And so we'll make sure that we don't have a concert on those holidays. But we need to make sure that we're thinking about all of the families. And it shouldn't be that because somebody celebrates something that's not celebrated maybe by a large population of people, that they always end up having to have a concert on their important day in their faith or in their, in their culture. So we have to make sure that we know that's part of our knowledge of students and then part of our responsible decision-making in that area. And then making provisions for, any religious observances that students might have obligations or desires especially when we go on like a weekend trip. So that's something that, if you're not into that, it can be easy to overlook. But there are students who then become put in difficult situations of, do I do what I believe I need to do for maybe my faith, or do I go on the trip? And we don't want those to have to be conflicting. We want to make sure that we do our best to make all of those things work so that our students can still honor their identity, aspects of their identity while they're with us, and they can still be part of our community. And so that's part of our responsible decision making, is just deciding how we're going to maybe adjust the schedule or make provisions when we're traveling. That was a lot longer video than usual, and that is because there are just so many important things with bringing the music and SEL together along with the 5 core competencies. So now that you have this background, you'll go ahead and complete the activities in this module, which will culminate in your creation of your project for this class, which is explained in a separate video. Thanks for watching.